On this episode of Buff's Garage, I'm going to try to get the steering going on Fred the Little Farm Truck with a little help from a Mustang II. I picked up this Mustang II from Dalton at Pole Barn Garage, so thank you, Dalton. And hopefully it's going to have the parts we need to get Fred the Little Farm Truck back on the road and driving. As long as things don't escalate. Welcome back to Buff's Garage. It's kind of warm here in Oklahoma, so I turned the fan off just so you guys can hear me. But the last episode, I kind of left you hanging. I was looking for the steering setup for this Datsun 520. It's a 1966. Not the most desirable year of Datsun, but I found this Datsun. It was sitting in Texas. I got it from a guy in Oklahoma City who bought it from the auction, where it had been sitting for decades. And in an episode, I got it running and driving about 20 feet. After that, I killed it because it has no working clutch, and rather than replace the starter or try to find somebody that could rebuild it, which I've since found, but too late, I pulled the whole engine and put the Mopar 318 out of our Plymouth Volare in. With a 904 automatic transmission, thing fired up and did burnouts. So in that last episode, you saw me trying to find the perfect steering setup for this thing, and many of you noted that I pulled the steering rack from a Saturn, and I pulled it from behind the crossmember, and I think as I was measuring, people were getting confused as to where that was going to go in the truck. Basically, my steering is in the front, not the back. So if I'd put this steering rack in there, in the back, it wouldn't have anything to hook to at the actual hub here. And if I'd have put it on the front, every time I turned the wheel right, the truck would have went left. Does that make sense? So I didn't quite think it through, but also by the time I got home with the steering rack and started devising and figuring it all out, I already knew I had another option. So, fast forward. Fast forward to the Mustang II. This Mustang II is at Pole Barn Garage, and I got it from Dalton. It was his scrap leftover one. He's already stolen the engine out of it. It does have a transmission in it, so if anybody needs a Mustang II transmission for a V8, there's one in there. My goal is to steal the steering, suspension, and maybe even the rear end out of all of this, because the rear end is set up for a V8. Just gently slide it up underneath Fred the Little Farm Truck. That would give this thing Datsun, Mopar, and Ford all in one vehicle. I think I need to throw some GM in there somewhere. So anyway, I gotta go ahead and pull the engine and transmission back out of Fred the Little Farm Truck. Then we're gonna start disassembling the front suspension and steering, get it all out, make room for the new Mustang II setup. But first, I need to deal with this mess. I dropped everything to go help Dalton out of New Mexico. This is what happens when you work on multiple cars in short time frames, is you end up with these piles everywhere. And I actually have some space up above, but some of this stuff's kind of heavy. So that brings us to the sponsor of this week's video, Fleximounts GL1. Well, I got it loaded up. Let's see if we can't crank it on up to the top. You can even use a drill to operate it. Fleximounts is a US company dedicated to providing effortless storage and organizing solutions for your garage and home. Their products are highly rated on Amazon, with their classic garage racks being their best sellers, trusted by many for their quality and innovation. And there we are. It's up there. I can now move all those objects off of this lift and put them on the upper level, or if I need extra space, I can just leave them on there, and whenever I need them, I'll just crank her down. Pretty cool product. And I want to mention, that's a lot of weight up there. So that box is full of a bunch of shop lights, a set of wheels on there, so that's a decent amount of weight to be supported, and this thing is rated to hold it. So all in all, the Fleximount GL1 did its job. It got all this stuff cleared off the floor, it got it up out of the way. We can now put it in the rafters. We could leave it there if we wanted to. It'll hold the weight, and then I've got more room up top for more stuff. but that'll help clear out the floor and get us back to work without stumbling over things. By using the included template, you're able to map out where all the different parts need to go for an exact fit. I love that it's made in the USA, but the only complaint I would have is if you're made in the USA, where are all the bolts metric? I get it, you work with what you got. But that's really my only complaint. Thankfully I already had the metric tools out, so it worked out. I want to thank Fleximounts for sponsoring this video and for sending me this storage solution for the garage.
And save space with the Fleximount GL1 overhead storage rack available on the Amazon link below. Fleximounts brand month is here. Enjoy up to 50% off and extra savings up to $100 during our brand day sales. Click the link below for more.
So like I said, it is hot here in Oklahoma. I am on the lake, but that just makes it more humid. So I will have the fan going. Sorry if it messes with the sound. It'll lock was leaking anyway, so we're gonna replace it. Especially since one of you sent me this. It's an Edelbrock 1405, and quite frankly, this is almost $500 worth of carburetor. So I think his name was Jonathan, but I apologize. Amazon didn't do a good job of putting all the information in there as to who sent it, but thank you for sending me an entire carburetor just so I could put it on this thing and do some burnouts. Well, to make room for the Mustang II front end, if it's going to fit at all, we've got to remove the factory dots and stuff, which is honestly in there pretty good. It's hard to do with one hand. There we go. Part of one side down. Got to get the rest of this cut out and then do the other side. Well, things have escalated. I'm trying to cut out the suspension on this truck, and it is really in there. Like, they really did a great job of welding it in. And so things are bolted and welded. It's just a really, really stout little truck. I've realized we're going to have to basically clean slate this thing to make the new Mustang II stuff fit. Now, if you look online, you can get yourself a Mustang II setup from pretty much everywhere. Speedway, Summit, Jegs, they all sell them, but somewhere between $1,200 to $2,200. I can't afford to do that, so grabbing this bargain Mustang II from Dalton is really going to help the process for me. But unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff I got to cut out of the Mustang II because it's welded on. It's not just a simple couple bolts and it's out. So after seeing that, I realized how much we're going to have to clear off of the frame here. And I started, and I realized what I'm doing isn't going to be enough. So, Operation Clean Slate commences now. I'm going to go ahead and pull the cab bolts off of everything because this whole structure is basically one piece. You can't just pull the fenders off or the inner fenders. Inner fenders don't come out. They're welded to part of the body as well as its core support. Taking this fender off does me no good. It's still part of the structure. So really 6 bolts and it's out. So I've only got 4 bolts that I need to take out of the cab. There's the 2 up here. And we're just going to pull the whole thing off. I'm going to go ahead and try to pull the bed off too. We're going to wipe this whole frame clean of anything that we don't need. Operation Clean Slate commences now. Well, this is that moment that having a lift would be nice. Just to be able to leave the frame on the ground and lift the body up. Brake line we're not going to use. Well, if we wanted to do a body lift, now's the time. But if anything, I'd like it to be lower. All right. Wow. You know, that body mount isn't bad, but definitely needs to be cleaned up. So, more jack stands. We'll get the body up high enough, then we'll figure out how to get all this out of the way. So I can have the body in one spot and frame in another. Not bad for a couple of jack stands and a jack with some blocks on it. Should be able to roll the frame on out the door. So let's get to doing that. Well, I've effectively got the cab off the frame. So either I'm going to make this a really nice truck, or I've just built myself a truck bed trailer. How about you take a look at this frame? You can see my handiwork where we shot it satin black. You can see why it's such a pain to get all of that stuff off. So now that this is out of the way, should be able to get to all these components a lot easier and strip this. But look at how solid these frames are. That is stout. It is completely boxed. None of that C-channel stuff. This is the cab mount. Look at that. So this mount had a cross member for the torsion bars that ran up to the suspension. That's what gave you your nice little ride. That is some heavy steel right there for the cross member. This is an I-beam full of mud, but like heavy duty. So this truck was built stout. So my goal is to eliminate the weight we don't need while keeping all the strength and integrity of the frame. We're going to make it ride nicer, we're going to make it stop nicer, and hopefully be able to handle the massive torque, not really, of the Mopar 318. But the truth is we don't know where we're going with this truck, so we might as well build it to be able to handle whatever we could throw at it later. And here's the chance to do it. Well, with the frame and the bed outside, I need to clean out the bed, but then I need to get the bed removed off the frame. Well, it's heating up here at Grand Lake, Oklahoma, and yeah, I went ahead and pulled the bed. It's 5 bolts on each side, so 10 bolts total. And believe it or not, those back bolts took longer to take out than all the rest of them. They weren't really rusted in. It was, the bolts were attached with nylock nuts. And so getting the impact on there was easy enough to get those zipped out. But then these back two you can't get an impact on because of the way it's in there. You can't get to it. So it's wrenches, and those 2 back ones took longer than everything else. And before you say, hey, you're gonna dent up the bedside setting it like that, well, it's a farm truck. It's already beat up. If anything, it's going to add to the character. Plus, it was just easier to do by myself. Flip it up like that. You can see how long it sat. See, there were vines and stuff growing up in between it. And yes, the bed is pretty much Swiss cheese. But I'm going to see if I can't get that tank cleaned out and reuse it. Not to mention, it's a busy weekend here at the lake because 4th of July is coming up. So there's going to be a lot of traffic through here. People literally doing nothing but driving around because they live their city home and their city job, and they come out here and they think they have to create traffic jams at the lake. Just go get in the water, have some fun, quit patrolling the neighborhood. But what can I say other than things did evolve? We went from just trying to make Fred a little bit safer, make him steer, maybe have some better brakes, to full race chassis build. And by that I mean stripping it of everything that isn't necessary. I just got to finish pulling that rear end out, a couple of U-bolts away from that. And this will be mostly stripped, and then we'll start pulling the old Mustang II apart and seeing what actually doesn't fit, and then make it fit. I really like how strong this bar is, but it's kind of in the way for our pulleys and radiator and everything else, so I may end up cutting it out / cutting it down, maybe replace it with something a little smaller like this square tubing here. whatever we do, we need to get it done quickly because I need this back under there so I can get it all back together. Race car stuff. Or in this case, race truck. By the way, do you like my new hat? I got these for Independence Day, 4th of July, and they kind of go with the new Falkenstein shirts. So check those out. Check out the new hats, buffsgarage.com. I'm telling you, without the merch sales last month, there's no way I'd be able to do this month at all. Merch saved me. Thank you to all the ones who've already went to buffsgarage.com. Grab yours today. There we go. Now I have no idea how the Mustang II rear end is going to fit in here, but I know it won't fit as long as this one's in, so we need to take this one out and start figuring it out. Huge bump stops are going to have to come out. You know, when the bolt comes out good like that, has a good head, I'm going to save it. I may not have a use for it right now, but I think it's handy to always have some good bolts laying around, especially when it's a hour-long round trip, you know, 30 minutes each way just to go to town. Looks like a chunk of rubber and fiberglass. That's what they used for the spacers for the bed to the frame. It's like 104 today. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. I'm out here working in this because of you. I want you to follow this progress on this truck and, you know, how things escalate really quickly. And how a guy could look at this and go, it's too far gone, I can't do this. That's why projects get taken apart and left in the shop. But that's also why I put the engine in the truck first. Proof of concept. We could make it work. And I could have kept going down the trail I was on. Yeah, things would have had to have been modified to make the steering work, and the brakes would have really been inadequate for what we were doing. But then I would have had to do exactly this to make it competitive. And what I mean by competitive is not only make the road trip, we're talking over 2,000 miles each way, so like 2,200 miles. So not only making that road trip down to Tucson, but then making it capable of handling the heat, and let's face it, the ridicule of some of the biggest names in the automotive industry. It needed to pass judging, and then of course make it down the track safely, meaning I get from point A to point B without the truck blowing up, without me dying, or anyone else for that matter. So to do all of that, I really needed to do some work here to make this safer, to make this more reliable. And it's one of those things, well, I've come this far, I might as well go on to the next. And for that, we're going to try to keep it as Datsun frame as possible while making it as light as possible. That's where we're at. I'm going to hang on to these hangers, so I'll probably need them. Now I think the Datsun rear end would have handled the trip. I think it would have handled a few burnouts. It probably would have even handled the race. I don't know if it would have handled coming back. I hear they're stout right up until they're not. And that's the point that I don't want to find out well over 1,000 miles from home. Could the Mustang II rear end blow up? Absolutely. But I'd like to think I'm going to do a little extra work to maybe make that not happen as quickly. Okay, there's the other rear, or the bottom mount. Quality shocks. Yeah, they're shot. Okay, I don't think we're going to need this much bump stop next time, so chuck those. I've about got the frame to where I want to maybe power wash it? Nah. Yeah, probably. Let's power wash it. That'll cool me off anyway. I want to give a shout out to Joe Gray for sending me these things, whatever they are. You basically dunk them in water. I did not put mine in the fridge or anything, but I'm telling you, just getting them wet and they hold on to that water, it helps wick away the heat. And on a day like today, it's really helpful. So thank you, Joe, for sending those to me. You guys, if you want to send stuff to me, I'm not asking you to, but if you want to, you can hit me up at the P.O. box down in the description. All right, where's that pressure washer? We're back out here with the Amazon Special Electric Pressure Washer. We used it before on the Datsun. It does a pretty good job. I think it was the cheapest one on Amazon. Becca got it to do our siding and wash it off. Yeah, you know, eventually I think we'll get to that.
I was born and raised country as can be. My heart beats for the heartland, smack in the middle of the land of the free. I said it once and it again. Know how many times I told you I know this stuff because I'm from the great state of Oklahoma. Cattle huddle up in the corner of the peg. Well, means it's gonna rain. Well, Mike Morgan wears that shiny tie. We play the Gary England drinking game. Yeah, turn around and don't drown when it's time to get out the boat. Get under the ground or get out of town or take pictures with your camera phone. Yeah, we know how to say things like Cody, Blowtown, Quam, to me. Sometimes easier words than those often escape me. We got our own way of talking, we all understand that we're getting it done. Did you ever hear how you got nodding to? How'd you get your high tail of diet gone? Yeah, I was born and raised country as can be. My heart beats for the heartland, smack in the middle of the land of the free. I said it once, say it again. How many times I told you I know this stuff because I'm from the great state of Oklahoma.
Well, here it is all rinsed off. Now I'm going to take the time to make sure all the brackets we don't need are cleared off of the frame before final assembly. But this gets us close enough that we can start cutting apart this Mustang II and seeing what's going to fit and what's not going to fit, right? Because that's kind of where we're at. Let's get to work. Here at the Mustang II, we're checking out this rear axle. It is a 4-bolt, which that's running 13-inch wheels and tires on it. I'd like to put 15s on the back of the Datsun, but for now, we at least have rollers. Now, this is a V8 car, so that's going to be most likely an 8-inch rear end. Notice there's no bolts on the back of that housing. If there were bolts, it's like a 6 3/4. No bolts, it's an 8-inch. So we're going to assume it's the 8-inch because that's the most likely thing that's in here. I don't suspect that they've ever switched it out for anything else. Now there is a tag hidden somewhere on there and I'm going to look for that. But first I'm going to try to figure out how far down we want to take this. Do we want to just pull the axle and slide it over, or do we want to go ahead and pull these leaf springs too? Like, I can get to everything, so it almost seems easier to just pull the leaf springs. We can cut the shocks out and then just drag the whole thing out. That's probably what we're going to do. Oh, that's quite a bit beefier. Actually, if you don't count the rubber there, the leaf spring is 2.5, and the opening that I have available on the Datsun is 2 3/4. So in theory, that might actually work. Yeah, they're right on the money. We might reuse these too. Now the Datsun has 46-inch long leaf springs. So these are stretched out to 50.5. Let's just keep that in mind. They're a little bit more stout than the actual Datsun's leaf spring. They've got more in the leaf pack, but that was a truck and this is a car, so there's a factor there that I don't understand yet. Looks like the wasps are looking for a home. Get out of here, wasp. This thing was sitting in the mud. Other than at Dalton's, it's been sitting in the mud somewhere else. Okay, we've gotten this far. Let's get it out of here. Just removing the parking brake cable. If we need to set up new ones, we'll do that, but these are rusted up anyway. So, yeah, it's fine. Just a parking brake. Here's what I'm finding. I think these are going to have to mount outside of the frame on our Datsun. I don't know how that's going to end up working out. So, let's get it out and do some measuring. Put it under it and just see what fits. Worst case scenario, we've got a lot more work to do. Best case scenario, we do a little maneuvering and shove them in just about 2 inches on each side, and that should fit. I don't know, we'll see. It's hot though, so I want to get this done. Our U-joints aren't great, but they are connected. So I guess I have to crawl under this sketchy situation to get those undone. This is the part where a skid steer or forklift or something like that would come in handy. Hey, let go of my trailer wires. Dang it. You know what? I have an engine hoist. See if that helps, even on gravel. Probably won't move once I get the weight on it, but it's here. We have liftoff. No, you're supposed to stay on there. Yeah, the little bugger. Oh, my Lanta. That's heavy. Hopefully it holds up to, whopping 130 horsepower. But whatever we end up giving it later, Don't upset the cart. Okay. I feel like Bruce Banner, math. Between the heat, the sweat in my eyes, all the strenuous activity, and all this math floating around, I'm about to call it a night. But I want to see how close this is going to be. I'm pretty sure we're going to have to pull the leaf springs. Just looking at the alignment of the wheel arch and everything, I think the axle is going to sit in there, but these leaf springs aren't going to work. Plus, I know they're like 5 or 6 inches long, so I guess I got to go ahead and pull the leaf springs off the axle. And it's hot. You guys think it's hot to drive Falkenstein around? This is hotter. At least with Falkenstein, there's a little bit of a breeze. Not as much as you guys seem to think. You guys think that thing is just one big old whirlwind, but it's really not. You don't really notice a lot of air movement. The only reason why there is air movement is because there's no back wall. So it's like opening your back slider on your pickup. It pumps the air in. It does get warm around the firewall and the floor because it just isn't insulated very well. But still a lot of fun to drive. And it's proven, it's done the miles. By the way, if you haven't picked up a Falkenstein t-shirt or sticker, head on over to buffsgarage.com. They're still available. Pick yours up today. Sounds like Kid Rock's flying in. 4th of July is over, man. I had Blake Shelton here last year. He was hanging out with some kind of football guy that had a Lamborghini boat. Not even kidding. Lamborghini. Who knew they made boats? Look at that. Still greased like it just came off the showroom floor. You see that? Fresh as the day is new. Holy cow, these bushings are not in bad shape considering how long they've been in there. The bolts look good, they're not rusted. Bushings look good. I don't know how many miles this truck had on it, but you know, the frame is not bad. It's got a lot of surface rust and that's about it. The bed had a lot of mud in it and that's why it's basically see-through. The cab had mud in the floor, otherwise it's rust free. It's going to turn out to be a pretty good little truck. Race truck. Yeah, that's it, race truck. Well, before we start playing with this and experimenting too much, let's clean it up. Pressure washer's right there. A bunch of years worth of crap. Let's clean it off. I can already tell this is going to need some extra love, so let me get some. If you can't find the love you're looking for, you can always order it. I get mine in bulk. Super clean. In the aerosol and in the spray. When you really get advanced, you can do a wield. And you can mix it up. You can do aerosol and then spray and then aerosol. You can do both aerosol or both spray. Whatever it is you prefer. You can do it with Super Clean. I want to thank you guys watching, because since you watch me and you watch Dalton and then you watch Dalton and I on our adventures, I was able to spend a week with him hanging out at Puddin's Fab Shop building an El Camino, and for all that effort I didn't get to put out a video that week. So Dalton was nice enough to basically overlook the fee for the Mustang II, at least so far. But we had agreed on a price of a couple $100. What we usually do here, we get it nice and coated till it drips a little bit, and then we let it sit and kind of soak and break down some of that grease and oil and dirt. And we come back and hit it with the pressure washer. Whatever it doesn't take off, we can scrub off, or we can just say it's good enough. I learned from Puddin' you can do a power washing montage dance. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I just want to get the dirt and crap off of it. So, no offense to Puddin', he's a great guy. He put up with Dalton and I for a whole week, and his wife. Really good people. Go check out Puddin's Fab Shop. Hey, there's the tag. Okay, it's going to rain any minute now, so I'm going to try to hurry and do this. Alright, let's take this in and go decode that, because it's going to rain. So according to this tag, it's a 1977 WDW-AA, which is a 279:1 ratio, 8-inch, C2, which is conventional or open. That is not a traction lock or, you know, posi, limited slip, any of that. but the carrier is removable. So maybe I hit up some folks and see if we can't find a replacement that's got a little bit more bite and spins both at the same time. Well, next morning, I was out till 10 o'clock last night here in the shop, just trying to get things moving along. I feel like the heat of the day was what was slowing me down. But we don't have that problem today because it's raining. So I'm going to be jumping in and out of the shop while it's raining. Try to finish getting these leaf springs off. The whole goal here is to try to fit some leaf spring in there. Don't care if it's the old ones or the new ones. We need to get those fitted in there. The frame is slightly too narrow for this setup. It's probably 2 inches off. So the options are to move the leaf spring mounts out and leave everything with the rear end and everything like it is, or unbolt this and see if I can't move it in a hair. I don't know how that's going to affect the axle. I'm going to have to look at all that when I take it apart. Back to her stuck. That's the one-man moving method. You gotta do what you gotta do when you're by yourself. Now, I've been in a bit of a quandary this whole time. The factory Datsun had the 14-inch wheels, which we put brand new tires on and can't use because different bolt pattern. The Mustang IIs, you can fit 15s, 16s, those on these axles. I mean, they make a 4-bolt that bolts right up to this, and you can get them really big if you want. But with our current gear ratio, even if we do get the Hail Mary from Quick Performance on changing this rear end, I'm not sure with the horsepower that bigger wheels and tires are going to do me any good. At the end of the day, I need it to have the look. The look is farm truck. So the white Steelies were perfect that were on it. These 13s would work for a Datsun pickup. I don't think people would notice, but now I'm worried about ground clearance. So I did have an offer from Fomoco Garage to do some 15-inch center lines. Now, that's not going to work for the judging, right? Because we don't want center lines on our truck for the judging. And then again, 15-inchers, as great as they are, I don't know that they're going to help us that much on the drag strip, just because of our power issue. We don't make a lot of horsepower. We have a light vehicle, so we want to maximize our gears as much as possible. And basically, we want it to launch hard and then go fast. But to do all that, we have to, there's math, and I'm not good at math, but basically gear ratio, how much horsepower, what's the tire diameter, all these different things factor in, because if you have a certain gear ratio in your rear end and then you put the wrong size tire on, you're actually going to make the car slower. If you put the wrong size tire on the other way, you could actually bog down the car because you don't have enough horsepower to really get it going. So we're going to have to fine tune that. But for now, I'm just going to wrestle with it in my brain. I have the 13-inch wheels here. I have the 15-inchers available. So for highway, I think the 15s would help us. Depending on the gearing we end up with, if it's this gear or even a little bit, you know, lower gear, I say lower. You guys understand that the smaller the number, the higher the gear, and vice versa. So maybe lower gear, taller tire, give me a little bit better highway mileage. I don't know. All I do know is that this thing just sat outside last night and got rained on, and I had pulled the plug out because it was basically stripped anyway. So gonna need a new plug. But also, this is full of water, and as much as I didn't want to do it, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it apart. I also noticed that the passenger, or wait a minute, the driver's side axle seal must be leaking. I want to say it's the wheel cylinder, but it smells like axle, not brake. So it's probably just good to go ahead and tear it apart. Well, now that I moved inside, of course the sun came out, but it should make all that wonderful rain immediately turn into humidity. So I've got the swamp cooler out, We're digging this apart. Get a better look at that tag there. Somebody's had this apart. Why they didn't fix that axle seal, I'll never know. I mean, it was Dalton's car, but I know he didn't take this apart. Despite my better judgment, I know there's water in there, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this carrier out. And then we'll await these guys to get back to me. See what we can do about it. Either way, I'm going to have to deal with these perches because they're in the wrong spot for what we need. Yes, the whole axle is going to be wider than the Datsun, but it should fit within a couple of inches of where the old axle was. A couple of inches on each side anyway. There's about 5-inch difference. And hopefully we get the right offset, we can make the tires still fit within the wheel wells. If not, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Could I just use the Datsun? Yes. I'm not going to though, so stop saying that. Or maybe I do end up using the Datsun because it's easier. I don't know. Let's dig into this one. This whole area is just completely full of axle grease. Like, it's piled up on the shoes. I think I can clean it up. And believe it or not, even with all that axle grease, these 9/16 nuts were really stuck on there. But once I get this one and the other one pulled, we can pull out that center. Take a look at what we got. The fact that there wasn't that much lube in there kind of worries me, but I also know it was sitting for a while. Dalton did tell me that he drove it around a little bit, but he wouldn't have done anything too crazy. Okay. Sometimes you got to give it a little tappy tap. Bearing feels fine. Just got to put a new seal on it. Looks like we're going to have to tappy tap this one too. Well, alright. Now the center section should just pop right out. Except for it's absolutely heavy. And there goes all the nuts. Awesome. And any oil that was left is now on the floor. And there she is, in all her glory, the one-wheel spin meister. While I wait on that phone call, I better get started on the front end of this truck if we're going to get this frame finished and put back under the truck. I can always figure out the rear end later, but I got to get something set up for the steering, which is why we started this whole thing in the first place. So, off to the Mustang II. Now when Dalton first suggested the car, he mentioned that he had it laying around and that all of this should be a pretty easy swap. The problem with that thought process is a lot of this stuff isn't bolted in, it's welded in. So to make this work, I'm going to basically have to cut this car apart. Now, no big deal because the car was pretty cut up already. That's not rust, that's cut out. And you can see the frame that's cut and welded. That's another car cut and welded in very badly to this one. It's obviously been smashed in on this side. Truly, there's nothing lost in this car. But if we can salvage a lot of good parts for a lot cheaper than what I could go buy stuff for, then that's a win. I still love those T-tops, but not in the cards today. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and peel this stuff off the front end after this guy makes a lot of noise, likely with the cutoff wheel and Sawzall. Yeah, why do it right when you can do it right now? Tiny little brakes, but they're disc brakes, so that in itself is a win. And brand new brake hoses, so if I can get the lines apart, we're going to take that with us too. Well, I say we make some cuts and see what happens. Cutting very good anymore. There you go. That truly gained me nothing but light. I can now see what I'm doing. Now Dalton suggested that I just cut this out, and that's what I started to do here, but I'm realizing, let me show you. I'm realizing that this goes to the suspension and it goes all the way back here. This is of course welded in, and then everything just happens to be attached in some way or another. So this is going to take a minute, but we're going to get it out of here. Yeah. This car is supposed to be a Mustang II, not a King Cobra. That's the second skin I found. Hopefully it's falling out of the car and not currently housing any reptilian, what are they? Any snake-like creatures? Shouldn't be much of anything holding it in there. There we go. That's what you want to see. All right. Now, in theory, I can lift the car up, slide this out, put the Datsun frame on it, and we got steering and suspension and stuff. Will it be right? Probably not. Will it work? Hopefully. Otherwise, I wasted a couple of days cutting this car up. Well, I got this thing out yesterday, and sure enough, there's a lot going on here. The biggest thing to understand is when you buy a setup like this from a racing parts provider, they're going to send you, generally, they're going to send you this cross member. The upper arm, the lower arm, springs, shocks, all of this, including the steering. But this piece won't be welded on per se. Now, they might have a kit that has the provision to weld it on, or they might have a bolt-on version that you can pretty much bolt on to any vehicle. In this particular case, it's of course welded on from the factory. Now I can see the line where this upper spring perch, I guess, the pocket is. And so what we're gonna have to do is carefully extract this without losing the geometry that is this steering setup. the idea being we can take it and put it onto our frame over here without losing the geometry that the factory came up with. The biggest issue is this is already kind of a Mustang II, but still Mustang in the name, and I don't want it, you know, veering right into a crowd or anything. So we need to take our time to disassemble this and get it as right as possible. Get it on the frame, because then we're going to have to do some welding. Can't just self-tapper that on. As I'm trimming this, you can see just how much dirt is inside that frame. Pretty stout little frame considering what it is. Well, even though I knew my blade was worn out, I decided to keep trying to use it because these things are expensive. Like $10, $20 a piece, sometimes 30 bucks. And you know, it's pretty bad, but it ended up snapping off inside the Sawzall. So this one's done. And I'm waiting on the battery for my DeWalt to charge so that I can get back to cutting. But then I realized this. In looking over this control arm, I went, wow, that's really close right there. Why is that like that? And then I looked at this one. I mean, it wasn't like that. But it did have some old school spring enhancers there to help. But that shouldn't be like that. So then I looked at this one again, and that is definitely bent, which goes back to what we discussed about the car before. It was definitely whacked pretty hard in the front, and at this point I'm definitely going to need an upper control arm. And I hear what you're saying right now. I can get a whole kit, upper, lower control arms, eliminate the strut that comes out the side. I could bring them in 5/8 of an inch, get a little shorter track. I hear you, but money's tight, and if I'm going to save up enough money to actually go to duct tape, I can't be spending all the money that I have to build for duct. No, that doesn't make sense either. So money's tight. So I'm at a dilemma. Do I just order an upper control arm for about $100, or do I save up? There's a Amazon generic for $2.99 that gives you upper and lowers, and I believe it has the strut delete. I'd kind of like to delete those, but generic kind of worries me. And then the name brand kits are $500. And to be honest, all I really wanted to do with this originally was use the steering out of it. I only decided to use the rest of it because I thought it was in good shape and would ultimately give me a better ride in the long run. $100 I can do that. I can do $100, get a new control arm, you know, rebuild that, and I should be good. I'm gonna do the wrong thing and hit it with a big hammer. So it's tweaked here, yeah, for sure. I'm hitting it in the right spot. Hammering away. Kid driving a golf cart. I approve. Alright, I need to get some more Sawzall blades and finish trimming this up so that I can get that in place. I'm also out of black satin paint, which just sucks. But I want to do the whole rear end housing. Let's look through the cabinet real quick and see what I got. I've got some Van Sickle, looks like white. That the gray? Yep. And there is some black back there, but it's been a dilemma for me worrying about this upper control arm. But then I thought, what if there's any parts in the parts car? And sure enough, one of the folks that watch my channel also is the one that sold Dalton this car, and he said, look in the back. I mean, there is a lot of parts in this car. Looky there. One non-abused upper control arm for free. That's what I'm talking about. Plus there's a whole lot of other parts back here. And a small lake. Call that Mustang Lake. Alright, well that definitely makes me feel a lot better about getting this thrown back together. Now even though this tractor paint isn't my preferred satin black, I do have it in the cabinet. So I threw a little bit of catalyst hardener in it. That should help because the sun will come out and dry it really well by this afternoon. But for right now it's nice and cool, breezy, shady. We're gonna just slap this on there. Just honestly gonna try to spread it out, but lay it on fairly thick because I did no prep on this. Now you can use spray paint. You can use those patina things where they get you the chassis black. Eastwood makes a color too. I mean, you can use whatever you want. The key here is, let's get it all one color again. And then later, if we decide to do something else, we can. Well, things escalated. Painted up our differential. You know, I always wanted a Ford 9-inch, but the Ford 8-inch will be like the Great Value, Kirkland, you know, the store brand version of a Ford 9-inch. Still gonna work, still just as stout. You know, it's not perfect, but it's black and that'll work. And I did like the satin black finish that I had on the frame before, but I have this, so it's silly not to use it and then go buy more paint. And I missed a few spots here and there, and I haven't done the front yet because I need more blades to cut and make room for this crossmember. So when I do that, then I'll finish painting it because I have about a quarter of that can left. So here we go. We about got a full frame off restoration in effect on the Mopar Datsun Mustang II. Yeah. Well, what can I say, guys? I really wanted to get a lot further on this project than I did this week. And it's been a struggle to get as far as I have because I was trying to do all the work with the body still on the frame. And then once I pulled the body off, man, it was so much easier to do it that way. Not to mention the 110-degree heat index, so you got to work around it. I stayed late into the evenings and to try to get things done when it was cooler. I, of course, was getting up earlier in the morning when the sun was up, but it was still cooler out. That's really how I've been getting stuff done. But hopefully what you're going to see coming up in the next video is getting the chassis back in here, starting to fit all the components together, maybe moving the engine back a little bit from where it was, which will give me room to run the V-belt system that was on the car, saving me bucks there. And I don't see an issue with moving it back a little bit. I think there's room for it. We may have to do a little cutting here and there, which means I need more cutting wheels, either for the death wheel or for the Sawzall. So yeah, I gotta hit the store. But if you like what you're watching, make sure to hit up the merch at buffsgarage.com. That really helps, honestly. It keeps the lights on, it keeps the bills paid. YouTube does okay, but the merch is what really helps keep things going. Most of all, I want to thank the members because you guys are keeping the channel alive. You guys come back every single time I post something, and I appreciate you. Okay, so that's how you build a race chassis the wrong way, because race truck. But also because I'm just broke and this is how we're going to do it. I think the Mustang II suspension is going to greatly improve handling going down the road. There's a bevy of parts available when I can afford them, but they're available and you probably can get them at a parts store relatively quickly versus the old 66 Datsun parts. Can't really find them. Okay, so I'm still waiting on Quick Performance to give me a call back. No offense to them, they have reached out to me before to work with me on the van, so I'm sure we'll work on something to get that Ford 8-inch going, and maybe both tires spinning. I don't know. So thanks for watching Buff's Garage. We'll see you next time. Place is a mess.